Hey guys, welcome back. We are here with the Highpoint A2. We're going to go through some final adjustments, some things that you're going to want to know how to do on your mountain bike at home. But these are some great things and great tips. So we're going to finish out the build here. First things first, I got to get the tires aired up. We've got the Park Tool air inflator wherever my camera is, which is really great. If I can use my thing correct. So air pressure wise, if we're running tubes and let's say you're a 180-pound rider, these are fairly skinny cross-country tires at 225. So, you know, you guys are probably going to be best off around like 32 PSI. If you're running tubeless, maybe you can drop that down to like 24 or so. You know, I would say maybe put a fatter tire up front, like a 2.4. And then you can drop the air pressure, maybe a few PSI, 4 or 5 PSI. So we'll jump right into it. We've got air in our tires now. We'll need to get pedals on first. Keep in mind when you guys are working with pedals, pedals are left and right specific. So make sure you're looking at that. And the best way to do it, I don't know how well you guys can see this here, but you'll see the threads go either up to the right or up to the left. If they're up to the right, then the pedal goes on the right side. If the threads go up to the left, that's the pedal for the left side. So talking to a camera that's not looking at me, we do want to grease these. Keep in mind that your pedals are going to be a steel shaft on here, and your cranks are most likely going to be aluminum. Chemical bonding and the laws of chemistry tell us that will form a bond we will not be able to break. So it can be really hard if you're not greasing your pedals. A lot of people think maybe they should be putting some sort of thread locker. I missed the camera. Some sort of thread locker on these guys. That is not the case. It will automatically lock itself up. So check your pedals regularly. Be feeling in your feet for any knocking or anything along those lines. Something that might indicate that your pedal's loose, but that's something when we're riding on our bike, we do want to stick a tool on and make sure it's not moving around. So typically pedals, you're going to tighten them. You can look on your cranks, you can look on the pedal, but it's going to be somewhere between 30 to 35 PSI, or 30 to 35 Newton meters. So we'll go ahead and make sure those are torqued down properly. We don't want these pedals coming off. So getting things to proper torque spec is very important. It's really easy on a mountain bike to over torque pedals, and what's happening if you over torque something is you're spacing you're gonna mess things up. So you can grab your rear wheel and you always tighten towards the front of the bike and loosen towards the rear of the bike. So I'm gonna grab the rear tire and boom. And again, we're going to switch the ratchet because we're going the opposite way. And I'm again going to tighten towards the front of my bike. So these have been greased. Now they're torqued to spec. When you're done with your torque wrench, if you did buy one from the mountain bike shed lately, make sure you're turning this back down to the lowest setting. So we don't go all the way down. We go down to the lowest mark setting on there. So on this Park Tool, 10 to 50, 10 is our lowest marking, so that's where I'm going to wind it down. I could go further than that, but I don't want to do that. So you don't want all this tension on the spring while we're not using our torque wrench. That's going to help with the life of the torque wrench. So that's great. We've got pedals on. We've got a little rub on the rotor. So disc brakes, we see it often. People kind of get handsy with them. Don't do that. You don't want to get the oils from your finger on your rotor. And it looks like we're not really that far off. You know, one thing that's overrated, if you're going to be a mountain biker, you know, we're asking a lot of these bikes, so you know, if you're interested in this Highpoint, or maybe an entry-level mountain biker, so get a set of T-handled tools. These are going to be really helpful. But essentially what we're doing is I loosened these caliper bolts on my rear brake up just slightly to where I can move the caliper back and forth. And I'm going to spin the wheel and I'm going to hold that brake. So as I'm holding the brake, I'm going to snug down my caliper bolts. And then I'm going to test again. Alright, so I've got a slight rub just in one spot, and that tells me that my rotor is slightly bent. This often happens in the transportation process. Now, it's a pretty slight rub, so it might actually go away as I burn in the brakes of the bike after we get done with the build. Actually, it went away as I tighten that steeper. So boom, brakes are done. Now we got pedals on, we got our tires addressed, and last but obviously not least, we need to adjust our drivetrain. So I'll turn the auto director off so you guys can get up close and personal with the rear end of this bike. This is going to be a micro shift 10-speed. It's the Advent X. I do really like this drivetrain. The reason being is it has a straight line on the cable. So what I've been seeing a lot lately on bikes, is really bad cable routing that it hurts us in our ability to, let's get way in there. I don't know, guys. I'm jumping around on the camera. I apologize. I might have to leave you a little bit open. You're going to want to see my face and the words that I say. Here I am. All right. We can shrink that down a little bit more maybe. But yeah, so really nice cable routing here. You can see this, a good loop. This is very straight line. That's just going to help as far as everything goes. Now, what I'm going to do first here on this drivetrain, if I'm adjusting a drivetrain, I always go through the exact same process on every drivetrain. So if you come into the shop and say, oh, my bike's not shifting right, it's no problem. I'm going to loosen your cable. I'm going to dial your barrel adjuster on the shifter clockwise, so towards me on my rear end. I'm going to dial out about 5 clicks. That way I have some adjustment to loosen things up if I need to. And first things first, I'm going to bust out my 3mm. It's going to be the same on SRAM. I'm going to bust out my 3mm, and I'm going to set my low limit screw. Now, you can look, if you get in here close, you can actually look and see where these screws are touching. So it's your high and low limit screw. High and low limit screw is going to keep it from either going into the frame or into the wheel. We need to make sure these are properly adjusted on our bike. We also, people don't check often enough to make sure that their derailleur is installed proper, and if there's a bolt on your hanger, we need that to be snug as well. Those adjustments not being correct can affect your shifting pretty greatly. So we have tension off the cable, and I'm going to adjust my high limit screw. So I'll start pedaling, and I'm going to slowly dial this in until it either jumps up, or you can hear that clicking hopefully. And I'm going to adjust out one flat of my wrench incrementally until that noise goes away. The noise went away, so I know I'm good to go on my low limit screw. Now this is every time I adjust a drivetrain. So at home, if your drivetrain's not running properly, these are the steps that you're going to need to go through. So take the tension off, adjust your high limit screw first, and then pull this slack out of your cable. You don't need to apply a bunch of tension to it. We can always add that if needed later on, but we just want to pull all the slack out of there. So that's great. Move my reflector back into place. So now we've got our initial tension set on this bike. I'm going to jump us back. I'm not going to do auto director. You guys can stay on this screen with me. So now I can start pedaling, and I'm going to go up one gear by one gear. So right now I'm checking my cable tension, make sure my clutch is on. These bikes all have clutches, so micro shift is an up and down, SRAM's always on, and then Shimano has a lever. The up position is on Shimano, and on the micro shift it's the filled in circle. So make sure that clutch is on. That can affect your shifting as well. You don't want to make adjustments with it off. That's going to keep your chain from falling off. Now I'm just going through the gears one at a time. So I hit the click and nothing happened. At that point, I need to adjust tension. Since it didn't move at all, I'm going to move it by 3, but typically you would just move one click at a time. So that went clean up, and we had a little delay again. So again, I'm going one more click, rotating. I am rotating this barrel adjuster on the shifter, so you guys really probably can't see that very well on the other camera, but there's a barrel adjuster here, and I'm rolling it forward, or I'm rolling it anti-clockwise. So that's going to increase tension on my cable. It's going to pull that chain into gear a little bit better. So each time I make an adjustment, if I go to shift into a higher gear and it delays or doesn't go, I'm going to shift back down. I'm going to roll that barrel adjuster out, one click, one adjustment, one known adjustment, and then I'm going to retry again. So I've now done that, boom, nice and smooth. Right here we have this delay, and then it went up. Well, that's unacceptable. So I'm going to drop back down. I'm going to adjust my barrel adjuster here, one click forward, so anti-clockwise. And boom, nice and smooth. So you can see how that just went, oops, right up. You had a little bit of a delay there between those gears, so I went ahead and whoop, gave us another roll forward, clean that up. And now I'm going to stop before I go into my final gear. There's a very important reason for this. If your if your low limit screw is off at all, and I just shift into that top gear, if everything's off, it's going to throw my chain into the wheel and I'm possibly going to hurt my spoke. So I always completely stop the wheel, get this whole process slowed down. I'll take a look and make sure that my pulley wheel is going to clear the cassette. B-screw adjustment will be next, no worries. But I'm going to go in that gear and I'm going to go very slowly before I click into my final gear, ready to grab my brake and stop this wheel if that chain looks like it's starting to fall off. I don't want to damage anything on this bike or get my chain jammed up in there. So that's what we do. It's there, and now I want to do my high limit screw. So you can see when I push the lever in, this guy is still moving, which means my limit screw is a little bit out. So if I did that and I hold in my thumb, because we're always looking for that extra gear and I'm pedaling, it could allow it to go far enough to go into the actual wheel itself. So I'm going to snug that up. Again, we're tightening this. We're limiting the screw more. So I'm going to take my low limit screw and turn it in righty-tighty, one flat at a time. And then I'm going to take my thumb, holding onto the frame here, I'm going to push right on this knuckle. And I'm going to keep going, one flat of my wrench at a time, until this has no more movement in it and it's just sitting perfectly in that gear. You may need to adjust your limit screws, or if you do need to adjust your limit screws on your bike, it's most likely you had a crash or an issue of some kind and you bent your derailleur. So if you're finding that your limit screws are really far off and it's not because you maladjusted them, then it's likely that your hanger's bent. So before you go ride, we need to make sure that hanger is straight. You can get a DAG 2.2 here from the shed from Park Tool. It is really awesome. I recommend every mountain biker has one, but grab a derailleur alignment tool and align that derailleur. So anyhow, I can jump back up and I'm good to go there. Now what we're looking for on our B-screw adjustment, that guy's up top. If you're running 12 speed, you're going to have a guide. You need to use that guide. SRAM and Shimano are going to be different. Unfortunately, it's a 10 speed, so I can't show you guys that. But basically what we're looking for here is we want about 5 mil of space between the pulley and the other, which we're pretty close. I think we're probably a little bit too far out. So I'm going to pull my B screw out a little bit to get a little bit better chain wrap. So if your bike, once you start coming back down, if you're still running into issues here in the middle, one of two things is going on. Either your hanger's not straight or your B-screw adjustment is off. On 12 speed, it could very likely be your B-screw adjustment. On any of these others, if I were having problems here, I would probably assume it's the hanger. My hanger would come off, or my derailleur would come off, and I would check that hanger. So that's it, guys. That's how you adjust a derailleur. It's super simple, really easy. This bike is now ready to go. There's nothing left to do. So I recommend you guys grabbing a Jamis Highpoint. If you're looking for your first mountain bike, this is a really great option. The Jamis Highpoint is a bike that you can upgrade as you go. So if you're new to mountain biking, maybe you're not ready for that full suspension bike yet, this is something that you can get into under $1,000. It's got a tapered head tube, so you can upgrade to any fork that you want with 120 mil of treble, through axle in the front. It's non-boost, but it does have a through axle. But plenty to do this bike. It's upgradable. You don't have to feel bad about putting money into it. We've also got routing for our dropper post here in the C-tube. Also important, something we don't see on most sub 1K bikes. And then we've got our tubeless ready rims. So these are all the really fun things that you get on a bike that, again, aren't really coming on a lot of sub 1K bikes. So check out Jamis, a really cool company. The Highpoint is kind of their you know, it's really the first bike that's going to be long-term trail riding sustainable, but it is the highest of the entry-level mountain bikes that Jamis sells. So we'll have the Highpoint A1 with an air fork at $1,249, 1x11 drivetrain, threaded bottom bracket, routing for dropper post, tapered head tube. When we drop down to the A2 at $999, we're going to go from Shimano hydraulic brakes down to Tektros. We're going to get a 120 mil coil fork down from the air fork. We're going to have FSA cranks on there, and then we're going to have a 1x10 micro shift 11 to 46 cassette on the rear. Once we go down from there, the next kind of drop on Jamis's lineup of bikes is going to be your Durango and Trail X series. The Durango's a 29er, just like the Highpoint here. The Trail X is a 27.5. Those bikes are going to have cool forks, even the top models, the A1s. Those A1s are going to have a coil fork and a 1x drivetrain for $829. And then you can step down to the A2. That's going to be for your 2x systems. Those are going to be people, you know, anytime we sell a 2x, it's somebody who maybe wants to do some trail riding every now and again, but it's mostly going to ride around on the street, in the neighborhood, things along those lines. Also good for kids since they are doing a lot of neighborhood riding. The Helix as well falls in the same camp as the Trail X, but they have some more mid-sizes for our female riders. That's really cool and thoughtful of Jamis. But yeah, guys, that's it. Oh, and then the Divide is, you know, bare bones. If we need to get you on a mountain bike, you want to do trail riding, everybody looks like they're having fun doing it, then I'll get you on a Divide for $599. But again, whether it's a Divide, a Trail X, a Helix, or a Durango, if you try to come back into the store and start putting money into those and upgrading them, like getting an air fork, getting tubeless rims, going 1x if you're on the 2s, then I'm going to try to talk you out of that. However, if you get and you start on the $999 Highpoint A2, it does give me the ability to help you upgrade this bike as your skills grow. So we can slowly start putting money into this bike. We can go with a nice air fork with a tapered head tube. Maybe we upgrade this to Shimano brakes or some other brand that you love. Maybe we upgrade the drivetrain to Shimano. So there's plenty of place we can put a dropper seat post on here. We can do the tubeless conversion on these tubeless ready rims. These are all really important things and things that we find our customers want to do almost immediately when they get their new mountain bike. So please start on something like a Highpoint, $999, tapered head tube, hydraulic brakes, routing for a dropper seat post, threaded bottom bracket with standard cranks. These are all things that, again, the cranks are, you know, one thing I probably didn't point out well enough. You have either ISIS or square taper on most of your $1,000 bikes, which means you need a new crankset. So if you are going to upgrade 1x, there's another $150 for a new crankset and bottom bracket. You're already set up, ready to rock here with something reliable, something that's going to be able to take the bumps and bruises. When you're talking about a square taper system, if you're mountain biking, all those vibrations, all that weight through your pedals, it's really going to strip those out pretty quick. So again, get on a Highpoint. This is an awesome bike. no matter what you're looking at. We really love Jameis Bikes. They do a very thoughtful job of making sure our customers are going to be well taken care of. And yeah, come by, see it, ride it around. We're happy to answer any questions you guys have. Check out parts 1 and 2, where we pull the bike out of the box and do some cockpit setup and things along those lines. We'll see you.